Good afternoon everybody, Metalhead here, hope you're going well. I'm recording this on my brand new second-hand camera. I've attached a big ass microphone to the top. Hopefully this is working properly. I'm quite experienced with using add-on camera equipment because for the last year and a bit I've just been using an iPhone 6 to record most of my vlogs. Yeah, the red line is flashing. It's just all... I haven't even used a camcorder seriously since I was making Lego movies when I was 21, 22. Yeah, so thought I'd make a video while I top up my medication containers for the week ahead. Yeah, so anyway, I just realised it's been 4 years since I moved to this part of London, and it's been quite good to have stability. Good to have a roof over my head, good to have a fixed address, no more moving around unlike I was doing in my first 4 years of London. Now, surprisingly enough, I knew that I was not going to be living in hostels for the rest of my life because I ended up got back in hostels from the pandemic because of the kind of situation I was living in 5 years ago with this lady. I lived month to month, kicked me out during the start of the pandemic. She was just fearful her pleurisy would prevent her from living with other people. And I felt like I had overstayed my welcome, and I was never allowed to, vote in elections, because, tax reasons. But that was a sack of crap. The thing is, you can't only be spending your life in hostels. I already wrote a book, which I published on Amazon, about my first year living in hostels, because the guy who rented me a room out in Golders Green, a really nice area, a very Jewish part of London, even though I'm not really much Jewish, yeah, he basically stole my rent money. I left my room, lied to me, said I wasn't there, and then threw me an eviction, so I told him to F off, back to his fascist shithole nation, and basically I just left, and I never got that money back because the European Union vermin running that agency were like, well, you gave no notification so I can have your money back. And I was like, well, why don't you piss off my country and stop stealing money from decent people who just want a roof over their head. Yeah, it's because it's coming up 8 years in London, and I came back from a trip to Ireland last week, and it's been 10 long years since I was last in Dublin. And I thought to myself, wow, what could have had happened if I just stayed in Dublin 10 years ago, if I just got that job, if I just basically decided to persuade the life of living in Dublin when I never ever lived in the British Isles at all. I knew I can live anywhere, but in Ireland, or Northern Ireland, depending on what you want to call it. It's just that in Republic of Ireland, when you move there, you have to get your own ID numbers, and they do give them now, which is good, unlike in other stupid EU countries where you need to have a job contract to basically get a social security number and get things done, just like in Sweden. That's why I never succeeded in Sweden. But I stayed with an Indian family in Ireland over the weekend as I was visiting my American friends, and they told me how all the immigration to Ireland from Ukraine and Asia and all parts of the world basically increased the prices. But I thought it was weird how, a property in Belfast is cheaper than a property in Dublin. I mean, 2 different countries, 2 different systems, like that. Yeah. So, I moved to London 8 years ago on the 2nd of June 2017. Never really had much of a plan on wanting to live in London at all. I never really liked London. Always thought it was expensive, always thought it was overcrowded. But I thought, well, it pays better than the rest of the United Kingdom. And so, you always wonder why everybody from outside of London wants to live here, but then all the usual, the usual English people, they want to live in their parts of England and be kind of seem as someone like me who can't drive a car and has to rely on public transport. I could not live in a place uh, like Bacup, where Johnny Clegg was born. There's no way in hell I could live in Bacup. Even if Manchester was like an hour and a half away, there's no way I could go from Bacup to Manchester every day for work. And that's why when you move to countries, you got to make sure that your bills are paid by your wages. And if you're paying too much money to get to your job, then it's pointless. Because what was the point in Birmingham of having a job in Stafford and having to pay close to £11 a day to get there quickly when you're only working there 4, 8, 12, 16 hours a week? Just doesn't cut it at all. I'll also never forget some dickhead who could only give me a job at 12 hours a week at his fucking restaurant, and he just tried to persuade me for a kitchen porter job, even though I don't want to do that type of work, because I am a waiter. I am not a fucking chef, and I do not have any desire to. I like when I work in kitchens ever again. It's kind of crazy, like, I work with people who are much older than me, they work longer hours, and they do worse jobs than I do, and I'm like, do you really want to do this for the rest of your life? I know you're an economic migrant from Africa, but do you really want to be a kitchen porter for all this time? Even when there are better jobs out there. Because I remember I went for an interview at this hotel in London, and the the bench show manager from India tried to persuade me to take on a kitchen porter job and become a chef, and I told him I don't want to be a fucking chef, I'm a waiter. And so I declined the job, and I don't want to be a bit racist, but I just swore at him in Hindi because he was a total dumbass. Yeah. Okay. So, oh my bad. I really can't stand with like SD cards. I'm using a micro SD card because there's no proper SD card slots for these laptops. They prefer micro SD, so you really need to have card readers. So this is more technology and gadgets you have to keep in your bags and all that most of the times. Yes. And but another handy hack for when traveling is cables. You wouldn't believe this. I use one of these. This is a CD wallet. I used to have some DVDs many years ago, got rid of them. But now I just put in my cables and power banks and all that, and it's really a good compartment. I bought some packing cubes for my next trip, which will be quite interesting. So this year I've taken on 6 new nations, all in the Middle East. And I'm trying to get up to my 120th nation before my 40th birthday at the end of the year. I penciled in upcoming trips to Cape Verde, and I'm also going to get back to the Middle East again because there's a few more nations to get under my belt. There's only 3 of them, but it's all hush hush. And also I'm going to this really quite interesting nation in Africa, which I've been wanting this brace to Eritrea. I'm going to head off to Eritrea in a couple of weeks' time, everything's sorted. But it's going to be quite a mind-boggling experience. Because I'm going to be without internet for 5 whole days. I'm going to be in Asmara, the capital. I'm going to be eating a lot of Italian and Eritrean food. I'm going to be visiting a lot of amazing churches, mosque, and a synagogue with only one Jewish man left in Eritrea. It's kind of like, I wouldn't really say it's been on my bucket list, but for like the last 10 or so years, I thought to myself, God, I would love to go to Eritrea. It's just such an amazing history about what it's got. But it used to be a really hard visa to get, but right now it's a piece of cake. Like anybody who makes contact with an Eritrean tour company can get a visa on arrival for about $70. But also, I must warn you, it is a cash economy. Your ATM cards won't work, so bring a lot of US dollars. And, and also you have to make arrangements in advance, so I would have loved to go to Masera on the coast or Karen, but you need permits and it costs a lot of money. You can't take local buses, you have to take the driver. So if I could compare, let's just say, my trip to Burkina Faso for that weekend, and then my upcoming trip to Eritrea. I had good internet connection in Burkina Faso, and I know I was in the country during a really stressful time period after a military coup, and there had been terrorist attacks that had happened all around the country every week or so, week in, week out. And I was not really fearful because I was advised by a good friend of mine from the Balkans to basically fly in, fly out. That's what I did. Although I don't regret that I didn't get to go up to Bobo Deluso and see that beautiful mosque. I thought the logistics of like sitting on a bus for a couple of hours from Ouagadougou to Bobo and then going back for like a 3-day turnaround, I just didn't really see much of the point of that. Yeah. I also just realized that in my last few months of travel, I went to Northern Ireland and Jersey, so, and also the Isle of Man. So there's not much of Europe that I haven't left to see. I've still got Ireland, which is owned by Finland, I believe. It's between Finland and Sweden. And there's also Faroe Islands. And also, even though this isn't in Europe, I would really like to visit Greenland, but not now because of the 24-hour sun. I think it'd be better if I went in the winter months. Yes, that would be quite an interesting trip to Greenland, but because Greenland isn't really a country, I don't really think it would really count. I don't really think it's fair to count it towards 197, but it'd be a great big piece of the map shaded in if I went to Greenland. Just a nuke. You can get a return flight from Reykjavik to Nuuk for roughly 400, 450 return. But I must say that the prices will be up because Greenland uses Danish krone, and that's like £1 is like 8 or 9 krona. That. Yes. So yeah, at the start of the year, I made this like list of 10 countries that I hoped to visit in 2025. And without looking at my phone, I can just remember off my heart, okay, there was Israel, there was Greenland, there was Pakistan, there was Afghanistan, there was Tajikistan, there was Eritrea, there was Bahrain, there was Jamaica, there was Haiti, and Dominican Republic. Now, I've got Israel and Bahrain just on my list, and I'm going to Eritrea. But I don't think I'm going to be able to get to Haiti anytime soon because of what the current situation is. I've spoken to people in Dominican Republic who are like, why do you want to go to Haiti, man? It's dangerous. I'm like, well, it counts towards my 197. If I just get my 2 feet across the border, that would make me happy. But there's, like, I think to myself, how much is it going to cost to get to Sao Tome and Principe in the Atlantic Ocean? And average price is about 400 return from Lisbon with a good layover in Angola. So not only do I get to visit Sao Tome and Principe and Angola, 2 countries, I get to go to a country that is really visited. Because last year I was thinking of going to Sao Tome and Principe because I was in Ghana and there was a direct flight from Accra, but then I chose Burkina Faso. Yes. But, I'm only, if I'm on 160 nations right now, and it's like 197, I feel like there's only like there's only 81 nations left in the world. And it's just quite getting, well, I'm not saying it's getting easier. It gets harder depending on where about in the world you want to go. If I want to go within West Africa, Central Africa, I have to pay a lot of money for visas. But then I think to myself, well, I'm close to Asia, why don't I tick off all these countries in Asia? There's about roughly 18 countries in Asia that I've yet to be to. Easiest being countries like in North Asia, Southeast Asia, like Philippines, Japan, and then there's hard countries like Bhutan and Turkmenistan that I gotta be on tours. But I know, like, I can tick off so much countries in Asia if I just focus on Asia. It was like, this morning I went to bed at like 6 o'clock after eating for breakfast. And I had this dream that I was in South Africa and I was trying to buy a bus ticket to Mozambique, which was a country that I didn't get a chance to visit to, like, when I was in Southern Africa last year, sorry, like 3 years ago, I really wanted to get to Mozambique, but the visa situation was a little jog, and you had to have a booking to show at the border. You could get a visa on arrival, but I couldn't understand why the embassy in London was charging more for a visa than on the border. And then like I wake up and I'm like, well, why can't I just buy the next cheap flight to Southern Africa for 2 weeks and see if I could tick off Mozambique, Malawi, and Tanzania. Get a hat-trick nation done. But it all depends on logistics, because I've only got like 4 weeks annual leave. I have to earn my annual leave before I spend it. So if I think to myself, okay, I want to be away for my birthday in November, so that's only a few days annual leave, but then I'm going to be away in Italy for the Olympics in February, and so that's also like maybe a week or so annual leave, but so, because I'm going to be in Milan for the Winter Olympics with my buddy John and his wife, and then I'm going to take him to San Marino for 24 hours, because I haven't been back to San Marino since my first trip to Europe. And then I think, well, where can I go from Italy? I've already been everywhere else in Europe. Maybe fly onto Syria, or try to get to Yemen. I was supposed to go to Yemen all these years ago, and I didn't go because I had back issues in Bulgaria. I was bullshitting myself. I had everything planned out, but I didn't go to Yemen. But it's more like, the older I get, like, the world, I kind of feel like my world is shrinking a lot. And then I'm going to have to sit around waiting for these opportunities to get to places, like to get to Latin America, or to get even to the Pacific. The other day I was looking at flights to get to Tuvalu, and it was so damn expensive. I thought to myself, I really don't understand how in 30 years in Australia I didn't bother going to any of these countries, because they cost a bloody arm and a leg. It cost me $500 for a 2-day trip to Port Moresby, even though I was in question on the border. But that's the reality in these places, because of logistics of transport. You're going to spend a lot of money to get to places like Tuvalu, Palau, Sao Tome and Principe, even, dare I say, if you want to go to Falkland Islands, you're going to have to spend a lot of money, but in the end, it'll be well worth it, because you'll look back on it thinking like, wow, I went to a really amazing country that might be extinct because of global warming, or I can't believe I went to Sao Tome and Principe and none of my Portuguese friends have ever been there or not. Anyway, 18 minutes is over and done with. Metalhead over and out.